You know those moments, right? You think of an old friend you haven't spoken to in years, and then, bam, your phone rings and it's them.
Yeah, totally.
Or maybe you're grappling with a really tough decision, feeling completely stuck, and suddenly you overhear like a snippet of conversation from strangers that feels like it's speaking directly to your dilemma.
Mm-hmm. Those uncanny moments.
Exactly. They don't just feel like everyday occurrences. They often feel, well, charged with some kind of deeper significance.
Yeah.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into those powerful, often uncanny experiences that seem to defy simple explanation. Our mission is to explore the fascinating intersection of Carl Jung's concept of synchronicity and the ancient cross-cultural belief in divine signs.
That's a big intersection.
It is. We're going to unpack why and how these meaningful coincidences are so often interpreted as messages from something beyond ourselves, giving you, hopefully, a really comprehensive understanding of these profound phenomena.
And it's quite a journey, spanning centuries and disciplines. We'll be looking at this from multiple angles.
Yeah.
From the depths of analytical psychology through the rich tapestry of spiritual traditions.
Right.
And even through the rigorous lens of hard science. Our goal isn't really to tell you what to believe,
No, definitely not.
but more to offer you the frameworks, the tools to interpret these enduring mysteries for yourself, helping you navigate this world of meaning and mystery.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When we talk about these meaningful coincidences, we really have to start with Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychiatrist who actually coined the term synchronicity. So what did he actually mean by that?
Well, at its core, synchronicity is the experience of two or more events that are meaningfully related, yet lack any discoverable causal connection. No obvious cause and effect.
Okay.
Jung introduced it to describe things happening at the same moment, almost as an expression of the same underlying time content, as he put it.
Yeah.
He saw it as a causal connecting principle.
A causal, meaning not cause.
Exactly. Something that links the inner world of our psyche, our mind, with the outer world of, well, objective events. His big ambition was really to bridge that gap, that chasm between the objective scientific world and the subjective, meaningful world of the mind.
That concept, the causal connection, it's still quite abstract, isn't it? Is there, like, a key story or example from Jung's work that really brings it to life?
Oh, absolutely. The most famous one, the one Jung himself loved to recount, is the scarab beetle story from his clinical practice.
Ah, yes, the scarab.
Right. He was treating a young woman who was, let's say, stuck. Very rigid, very hyper-rational in her mindset, resistant to change.
Okay.
So one day she's telling him about this really powerful dream she had where someone gave her a piece of jewelry shaped like a golden scarab beetle.
A golden scarab.
Oh, okay.
And at that exact moment, Jung hears this gentle tapping sound at his consulting room window.
No way. Yeah. He opens it, and wouldn't you know it, there's a scarabade beetle, a common rose chafer, which is actually the closest European analogy to a golden scarab. It had apparently flown into the darkroom.
Wow.
So he catches it, walks over to his patient, presents it to her, and just says, "Here is your scarab."
Oh, I bet that had an impact.
Huge. He said it just shattered her rigid rationalism, broke through her resistance, and really opened her up to psychological transformation. It's the perfect storm,
Yeah.
Potent inner event, the dream. Low probability, outer event, the beetle appearing right then. And that crucial, subjectively experienced, meaningful connection linking the two.
That seems incredibly powerful for her, but it also sounds like, for Jung, it was more than just a one-off coincidence. If the scarab story is the classic example, how did he move from cases like that to seeing this as a fundamental principle of reality? Did he try to, back this up scientifically or philosophically?
Oh, he certainly did. He really saw synchronicity as cosmological in scope, not just some psychological quirk. He famously collaborated with Wolfgang Pauli.
The Nobel laureate physicist.
That's the one. They had this long, really fruitful partnership, driven by this shared belief. Their big goal was this grand marriage of physics and psychology that could offer a more complete picture of the universe.
Ambitious.
Very. They proposed that just as causality gives us a framework for physical events, maybe a causality could frame these meaningful coincidences. They even described a synchronistic event as an act of creation in time, a moment where space and time kind of collapse almost and causality disappears.
Wow, that's a pretty radical thought.
It really was, especially for the time. It suggested that maybe beyond the physics we know, there's this deeper layer of reality where meaning itself somehow coalesces from the fundamental fabric of existence.
That's fascinating. And it feels like this idea, this interconnectedness, it wasn't entirely new, right? Even in his own studies. Did Jung connect this to other philosophies or older traditions?
Absolutely. He was deeply influenced by, for instance, the Chinese divination text, the I Ching, the Book of Changes.
Oh.
He saw its practice, throwing coins or yarrow stalks to generate hexagrams that provide insight as a practical application of this synchronistic principle. He felt that Western causality needed balancing by this kind of Eastern synchronism, where meaningful coincidence is actually a reliable way to understand things.
So different ways of seeing connections in the world.
Precisely. And he also found precursors in Western philosophy, too. Arthur Schopenhauer, for example, had talked about the difference between objective causal connections and the subjective connections that only really exist for the individual experiencing them.
Okay, so if the inner and outer world are connecting through synchronicity, how does the psyche actually make that happen? How does the meaning part arise? This usually brings us to Jung's model of the mind, right? The different layers.
Exactly, you've got it.
Hmm.
Jung proposed those three main layers. The ego, which is basically our conscious awareness, who we think we are day to day.
Right.
Then there's the personal unconscious. That's where we stash our own repressed memories, forgotten experiences, things unique to us.
Okay, makes sense.
But the deepest layer, and the most crucial for synchronicity, is the collective unconscious. This isn't personal, it's universal. It's this inherited psychic foundation, like a shared reservoir of basic patterns and symbols common to all humanity, across cultures, across time.
A shared reservoir, like instincts but for the mind.
Kind of, yeah?
Yeah.
It explains why you see similar myths, symbols, and motifs popping up in vastly different cultures that had no contact. It's not learned, it's innate.
So what are the building blocks of this collective unconscious? Are there specific universal patterns in there?
Yes, those are the archetypes. Jung called them primordial images, or universal patterns of behavior and imagery. Think of things like the hero figure, the great mother, the shadow, the wise old man. These figures are motifs that resonate universally.
Okay.
And here's the connection. Jung believes synchronistic events often happen when an archetype within the collective unconscious gets activated, maybe by a strong emotion, a crisis, or a big life transition.
So the archetype gets switched on.
Exactly. And that activation creates a kind of bridge between the inner world, the activated archetype, and the outer world, providing the meaning and the coincidence. For the scarab beetle patient, the archetype of death and rebirth, symbolized by the scarab in many cultures, was activated in her inner process.
And then the beetle appeared.
And that corresponded with the appearance of the physical beetle. Later, Jung and Pauli refined this even further with the concept of the psychoid archetype.
Psychoid.
Yeah, psychoid meaning psyche-like, but not purely psychic. It suggests a level where psyche, mind, and matter aren't really separate anymore, but dissolve into a unified reality, which they called the unus mundus, the one world.
Wow.
The psychoid concept was their ultimate attempt to show synchronicity wasn't just in the mind, but pointed to a fundamental reality where the mind-matter split breaks down. Two sides of the same coin, really.
Okay, so that's Jung's framework, deep, complex, connecting psychology and maybe even physics. But like you said, humanity's been finding meaning in strange events for millennia. This is where it gets really interesting, right? The whole idea of divine signs across different cultures and traditions.
Yes, absolutely. And it's important to see there's a key distinction in how different traditions view these signs.
So?
Well, some traditions, particularly you see this in certain streams of Christianity, tend to view signs as quite direct, almost top-down interventions from a personal God, like a rupture in the normal flow of things.
Okay, like a specific message sent.
Right. Whereas other traditions, you see this strongly in Islam and Judaism, for example, often view the entire created world as an ongoing system, already embedded with signs. It's less about rupture and more about learning to read the language that's already there, requiring human interpretation and reflection. And modern spiritual beliefs often kind of blend these ideas.
Interesting distinction. Can you give some examples? Let's start with, say, Christianity.
Sure. In Christianity, divine signs are often seen as visible indications or even supernatural events sent by God to guide, warn, or reveal something. Think of the Star of Bethlehem guiding the Magi,
Classic example.
or the prophet Amos perceiving an earthquake as confirmation of his divine messages. Beyond specific events, you have powerful symbols. The cross obviously is paramount, symbolizing Christ's sacrifice. And early Christians used the ichthys, that simple fish symbol, as a secret sign to identify each other during times of persecution.
Right, the fish symbol. Okay, what about Islam? You mentioned ayat.
Yes, Islam has this really sophisticated framework called ayat, which literally means signs, but also verses of the Quran. There's a distinction made between articulated signs, which are the revealed verses of the Quran itself, considered direct communications from Allah for guidance.
The scripture itself is a sign.
Exactly. And then there are the unarticulated signs. These are embedded within creation, the natural world, the cycles of night and day, the complexity of life, even significant life events. All of these are seen as pointing towards the Creator's power, wisdom, and unity. The Quran constantly encourages reflection, tafakkur, on these signs in the world.
So looking for meaning in nature and life.
Precisely. And Islamic eschatology, the study of end times, also details very specific signs of Qiyamah, the Day of Judgment, including future events and figures like the Dajjal Antichrist figure and the Mahdi Redeemer figure.
Okay. And Judaism. You mentioned Hashgacha Pratit.
Right. Ashkaparati translates roughly as specific divine providence or supervision. It's the belief that events, especially significant ones in the lives of individuals and the Jewish people as a whole, aren't random but are guided by divine intervention, often for a specific purpose, even if it's not immediately clear.
So God's hand in events.
Yes. And Judaism also uses many tangible signs, often through ritual objects, to maintain awareness of the covenant with God. The mezuzah, that little case on doorpost containing the Shema prayer.
I've seen those.
Tefillin, the small boxes with scripture bound to the arm and forehead during prayer. Tzitzit, the fringes on prayer shawls. These all serve as constant physical reminders of God's commandments and presence. And of course, symbols like the menorah, the Magen David or Star of David, and the word chai, meaning life, all carry deep symbolic weight.
It's striking, actually, how across these very different ancient systems, there's this consistent theme. These signs, whether dramatic or everyday, seem to reinforce a sense of order, guidance, connection.
Exactly. In many ways, they address that fundamental human need to feel that we're not just adrift in a random universe, but connected to something larger, guided, and that our lives have meaning, even when clear causal explanations are missing.
That makes a lot of sense. So moving beyond those traditional religious frameworks, how do these ideas about signs show up today in more modern spiritual movements or even just popular culture?
Oh, they're very much alive, often reinterpreted. In modern spirituality, especially within what you might broadly call the New Age movement, the cosmos itself is often seen as this benevolent, conscious communicator. Synchronicity in this view often gets framed as a kind of wink from the universe.
A wink from the universe, I like that.
Yeah. And you see this really clearly with things like angel numbers. This is huge right now. People seeing repeating number sequences like 111, 444, 555, 777, and interpreting them as direct messages.
Right, like 111 means new beginnings, or 444 means stability, stuff like that.
Exactly. 555 for big changes coming, 777 for spiritual alignment or good luck. There are whole systems built around interpreting these numbers. And similarly, you have animal messengers.
Like seeing a specific animal at a key moment.
Precisely. The belief that if an animal appears unexpectedly at a significant time, maybe an eagle when you're thinking about needing vision, or a crow when you're going through a transformation, it carries a specific spiritual message relevant to your situation.
So the universe or spirit guides using numbers and animals to communicate.
That's the idea. It's fascinating how these modern takes often repurpose the core concept of cosmic communication, but maybe sometimes for more immediate personal validation or guidance. It perhaps reflects a contemporary desire for almost instant feedback from the cosmos.
And this ties into the law of attraction, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's deeply integrated. From a law of attraction, Loé perspective, experiencing synchronicity is often seen as direct evidence that you're in alignment, that you're vibrating at a high frequency, maintaining a positive mindset, and therefore successfully manifesting your desires. The coincidence proves your inner state is creating your outer reality.
Okay, but that sounds quite different from Jung's original idea.
It is, and this is a crucial point of divergence. The law of attraction fundamentally implies causality. Your thoughts and vibrations cause the external events to happen. Jung's synchronicity, remember, was explicitly a causal. For him, the inner and outer events were meaningfully parallel, but one didn't cause the other in the conventional sense.
Right, a causal versus causal. That's a big difference.
Huge. Also, their focus is different. Jung was all about individuation, the lifelong psychological journey toward wholeness, integrating the unconscious, becoming your true self. The law of attraction, while it can be used for growth, often gets focused on manifesting specific, often ego-driven desires, a new car, a specific relationship, wealth. Jung likely would have viewed focusing solely on ego desires as actually counterproductive to real psychological development.
Okay, that distinction is really important. Now let's switch gears a bit. We've got Jung's psychological view, the spiritual and religious views. But what about the scientific community? They tend to approach these phenomena from a very different angle, right? What does science have to say about these meaningful coincidences?
Right. From a standard scientific viewpoint, these experiences are primarily seen as products of our own brain's innate cognitive architecture. Our brain isn't just passively recording reality, it's an active and frankly often biased meaning-making engine.
A meaning-making engine. Okay. How does
Yeah.
that work?
Well, a key concept here is apophenia. That's our tendency as humans to perceive meaningful patterns or connections in random or unrelated data.
Seeing patterns where maybe there aren't any.
Exactly. Now, while extreme apophenia can be linked to conditions like schizophrenia, it's now widely understood as a normal cognitive function that exists on a spectrum. We all do it to some extent. It really raises the question, is our brain finding existing patterns, or is it actively creating them?
Examples.
Oh, common ones are everywhere. Pareidolia, seeing faces in clouds, or the man in the moon, or Jesus on toast.
Right. I see faces in wood grain all the time.
Totally normal pareidolia. Then there's the clustering illusion, like in sports, believing a basketball player has a hot hand just because they made a few shots in a row, even if statistically it's just random variation. Or the gambler's fallacy, thinking a slot machine is due for a win after a long losing streak.
Okay, so why do our brains do that? Is there a reason?
There's a strong evolutionary explanation. This drive to find patterns, sometimes called patternicity, was likely a survival skill. Imagine our ancestors on the savannah, the hominid who heard rustling grass and thought, maybe predator, and took precautions, was more likely to survive than the one who dismissed it as just wind.
Better safe than sorry.
Precisely. The cost of a false positive, seeing a pattern, predator, that isn't there was relatively low, maybe just some unnecessary caution. But the cost of a false negative, missing a real pattern, predator, could be fatal. So evolution favored brains hardwired to find patterns, even sometimes overinterpreting randomness.
Okay, so we're pattern-seeking machines. But what about belief? Does what we already believe influence this?
Massively. Our pre-existing beliefs act like powerful filters on reality. This brings us to confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. I've heard of that.
It's our tendency to actively seek out, interpret, and remember information in a way that confirms what we already believe, while conveniently ignoring or downplaying evidence that contradicts our beliefs.
So if I believe in angel numbers,
You'll definitely notice when the clock says 4.44, and you'll remember it because it fits your belief. But you'll likely completely forget the hundreds of other times you glanced at the clock and saw 4.37 or 5.12 or whatever, because those times were insignificant to your belief system. Your attention is primed.
okay, that makes sense. We notice what we expect to notice.
Exactly. And related to this is hindsight bias. That's the tendency after an event has occurred to see it as having been predictable, even if there was no objective basis for predicting it. This can make past coincidences feel much more meant to be than they actually were.
I knew it all along, even when you didn't.
Pretty much. It reinforces that narrative of destiny or guidance.
What about just chance, pure probability?
Yeah, from a purely statistical standpoint, the arguments for external intervention, whether divine or causal, often weaken significantly. This is where probability theory and the law of large numbers come into play.
Law of large numbers. Sounds important.
It basically states that as you increase the number of trials or occurrences, the actual results will converge on the expected probability. In a world with billions of people having trillions upon trillions of interactions every single day, highly improbable events are not just possible, they are statistically inevitable.
So weird coincidences have to happen sometimes just by sheer numbers?
Statistically, yes. Humans are notoriously bad at intuitively grasping large numbers and true probabilities. We tend to underestimate how often rare events will occur simply due to the vast number of opportunities for them to happen. What seems miraculous to one person is, on a global scale, just a statistical blip.
That's a less romantic view, but statistically sound, I guess. Is there anything happening in the brain itself, neurologically, when people experience these things?
Well, this is a newer area of research, but it's starting to yield some interesting findings. Recent studies using EEG, which measures brain waves, have found a correlation between people who self-report experiencing synchronicity more often and increased alpha power in their brains.
Alpha power, what's that associated with?
Alpha waves are typically linked to relaxed wakefulness, calmness, but also, importantly, the inhibition of irrelevant sensory input. It's involved in how the brain filters information.
So maybe people prone to synchronicity filter reality differently.
That's one interpretation. It suggests that the tendency to perceive synchronicity might be linked not just to high-level beliefs, but also to more fundamental aspects of how the brain processes sensory information and controls the flow of that information into conscious awareness. It adds another layer to the cognitive explanation.
And this exists on a spectrum, you mentioned.
Definitely. From healthy meaning-making, which studies sometimes link to creativity, finding purpose, and life satisfaction, all the way to the pathological end, where extreme apophenia becomes a feature of delusional thinking or psychosis. It's about the degree and flexibility of the pattern seeking.
Okay, wow. So we've journeyed through Jung, through diverse spiritual traditions, and now through the scientific lens. We've got these deep, often divergent explanations for meaningful coincidences. What does this all mean for you, the listener? How do we navigate this world full of potential meaning and mystery?
Well, it certainly highlights a profound tension, doesn't it, between these different ways of understanding. The ultimate truth behind any specific coincidence, was it an archetype activated, a message from God, the universe winking, or just a statistical anomaly filtered through our pattern-hungry brain? That might be fundamentally unknowable in many cases.
Right, we can't definitively prove it one way or the other most of the time.
Exactly. But what is knowable, and perhaps more important, is the subjective impact of the experience on the person. That's where the real power often lies.
Okay, let's make this concrete. Can we run through a quick hypothetical? Imagine you, the listener, are agonizing over a huge career decision, feeling totally lost, looking for clarity. You happen to think of an eagle maybe symbolizing vision, courage, freedom. And then moments later, an actual eagle swoops down low, lands directly in your path, looks right at you for a second, then flies off. Yeah. Big moment. How would each framework interpret that?
Okay, great example. Let's break it down. From a Jungian perspective, the eagle is a powerful cross-cultural archetype. It represents spirit, vision, transcendence, power. Your inner conflict, your need for clarity, activated this archetype in your unconscious. The physical eagle showing up right then. That's the synchronistic event.
So in a causal, meaningful parallel.
Precisely. It's not causing your decision, but it's a profound prompt from your unconscious. It's like a signpost on your path of individuation.
Jung's term for becoming whole, inviting you to reflect on those eagle-like qualities. Courage, perspective, taking the higher view.
Okay, Jungian view. Archetypal activation, individuation prompt. What about a religious view? From a religious perspective, say within a Christian or Judaic context, this could easily be interpreted as a direct sign from God. The eagle might be seen as a divine messenger, maybe an angel in symbolic form, or an act of hashgacha, that specific divine providence.
Like God saying, I see you, I'm with you.
Exactly. Demonstrating that God is aware of your struggle and is intervening perhaps to offer strength, affirmation, or confirmation for a particular path. It's a moment of direct relationship and guidance.
Got it. Now, the New Age take.
In a New Age interpretation, this is often seen as a clear sign from the universe, or perhaps your higher self or spirit guides. Your heightened emotional state, your focused intention for clarity, essentially attracted this sign, aligning with the principles of the law of attraction.
So the eagle confirms you're on the right path, vibrationally?
Pretty much. It's seen as validation. Trust your intuition, follow that feeling of rightness, the universe is supporting you. It's a direct, encouraging communication.
Okay. And finally, the scientific or skeptical viewpoint.
From that scientific skeptical viewpoint, this is a textbook example of apophenia fueled by confirmation bias. Eagles exist in that region, right? So seeing one isn't impossible, just maybe not common right in your path.
Right.
Because you were in a heightened emotional state, because you were desperately seeking answers, and because you just happened to think of an eagle, maybe you saw one earlier, or it's just a common symbol of strength.
Yeah.
Your brain seized upon this random event.
It assigned meaning to chance.
Exactly. You assigned profound meaning to what was, statistically speaking, a coincidence. Your brain, trying to reduce the anxiety of uncertainty, actively sought and found a pattern, filtering reality to fit a comforting narrative. You'll vividly remember this one walk, this one eagle, and forget all the hundreds of other walks where nothing significant happened.
Wow, one event, 4 or more, completely different yet internally consistent ways of understanding it. Whether it's the eagle or repeating numbers or thinking of a friend who then calls, each framework offers a compelling narrative.
It really does. And interestingly, regardless of which explanation you lean towards, or even if you hold multiple possibilities, these experiences do often have real psychological effects, often beneficial ones.
How so?
Well, in therapy, for example, simply validating a patient's experience of synchronicity, rather than dismissing it, can significantly strengthen the therapeutic relationship. It can also bring important unconscious material fears, desires, conflicts to the surface in a powerful symbolic form that can then be worked with.
So it opens doors for insight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thinking back to Jung, these events can be really crucial signposts on that path of individuation. They signal that an archetype, some core part of the psyche, has been activated and needs conscious attention and integration. They can also offer immense comfort, hope, and a sense of connection during difficult times, like grief or crisis, fostering resilience by making a person feel less alone, perhaps guided or watched over.
That feeling of connection seems key, regardless of the source. So, given all these layers, the potential meaning, the psychological impact, the scientific skepticism, how can you, the listener, engage with these experiences in a way that feels, well, healthy? Finding meaning without getting totally lost in magical thinking.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It really requires a delicate balance. A few principles might help. First, maybe cultivate receptive awareness. Be open to noticing these things. Practices like mindfulness, paying attention to your surroundings, maybe journaling about dreams or odd coincidences can enhance your sensitivity to those subtle parallels between your inner state and outer events.
So be open, pay attention.
Yeah. But second, crucially, engage in critical reflection. Balance that openness with a healthy dose of skepticism. Ask yourself the tough questions. Is there a simpler, more straightforward explanation, a purely causal one? Could this just be confirmation bias at play? Am I conveniently forgetting all the times this didn't happen? This kind of self-interrogation helps ground the experience.
If openness plus critical thinking.
Third, focus on the subjective meaning. Perhaps the most fruitful question isn't always, is this sign objectively real? But rather, okay, this happened. What does this mean to me right now in my current situation? Use it as a psychological prompt.
Like, what feelings or thoughts does it trigger?
Exactly. What associations come up? How does the symbolism, if any, resonate with the challenges or questions you're facing? This shifts the focus from trying to prove an external reality to exploring your own internal landscape. It becomes a tool for self-reflection.
Use it for insight, not just proof.
Right. And finally, recognize the spectrum of interpretation. Understand that meaning-making exists on a continuum. At one end, it's healthy, creative, helps us find purpose. At the other extreme, it can tip into paranoia, delusion, or psychosis. A healthy engagement, I think, remains flexible, curious, and ultimately oriented towards self-discovery and growth, rather than becoming rigid, fearful, or needing absolute certainty.
That makes sense. Stay curious, stay grounded. So, wrapping this up, the phenomenon of meaningful coincidences really sits at this incredibly complex and fascinating intersection of psychology, spirituality, science. We've seen Jung's attempt at a middle path, honoring both the psyche and the outer world.
Yeah, that bridge he tried to build.
We've seen how religious traditions offer these time-honored systems for embedding life in a purposeful cosmos, turning events into a kind of sacred dialogue.
Giving meaning and structure.
And then the scientific view, grounding it all in our brain's own amazing, if sometimes biased, architecture, reminding us we're active interpreters of our world.
Active creators of meaning, in a sense.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it seems unlikely that any single one of these frameworks holds the exclusive claim to the truth of these experiences. Whether a specific synchronistic event is, a genuine glimpse into some fundamental unified order of reality, or a stunning reflection of our brain's own intricate pattern-making genius. Or maybe even both somehow.
Yeah.
Its impact on the individual experiencing it can be equally profound, equally transformative.
That's a great point. Perhaps the true magic, then, of these meaningful coincidences isn't just about figuring out exactly what they are, but more about what they allow you to discover about yourself, about your own mind, your beliefs, your needs, and maybe about that deep, enduring human yearning to connect with something larger than ourselves in this vast, undeniably mysterious world.